Assessment for learning policy. Assessment for learning is very different from the assessment that is always considered to be grading or giving marks. Please note, this is assessment for learning. Assessment for learning is different from assessment of learning. Assessment for learning means that the student will be guided to do better or work on the skills by the guidance and supervision of the teacher. At this stage, the teacher will not grade the student. It will be not a result-oriented activity. Rather, it will be a formative assessment, which is different from summative assessment. Formative assessment means the formation is taking place. The student is learning still to make it better. At the same time, the student's strengths are also exposed. So the teacher can guide the student which are his strong areas and where he needs to work. A good practice is done in the West in most of the universities, in the UK, USA, Australia, New Zealand, that the students are asked to submit a formative assessment or a formative essay before they submit the summative essay. The teachers, they have a look at the rough draft, which is a formative essay, and then find out what are the strengths of the students. After looking at the strengths, they guide the students that these were the things that have been really having a good impact on the topic that is given to the student. At the same time, they also point out which are the weak areas and how they are going to work on it. Now, this is very important. They just don't say that these are the weak areas. Rather, they also guide how to improve on those weak areas, which is a very difficult thing to do. But the teachers need to develop this in their system, that they must give a feedback along with the guidance lines on which the students need to work. Both the parents and the students, they benefit from this feedback that is given by the teachers. And most of the time it is noticed that after submitting the formative essay, the students are looking forward to the comments by the teacher, so that they will be able to develop it and make it better and then submit it finally. The final submission will be considered as summative assessment or assessment of learning, because that is going to give a grade or the mark to the student and tell him what level is he in his learning process. So the assessment for learning policy is a policy to help the students, to give them a true feedback on their work and then make it possible for the students to improve their essays and their learning and then submit finally to know their level and grades. There is a particular code of practice that we need to follow in order to assess for learning. The assessment for learning policy will be having exercised in different institutions in different manners. It can be just an oral assessment for learning. It can be a written assessment for learning. It can be just a code of conduct which is taking place in the classroom learning and the teacher is assessing them and keeping a record of it. So there can be different codes of practices in order to make the assessment for learning possible in the classroom learning and also in the final learning, that is called the assessment of learning. Usually there are board or college examinations or school examinations which determine the assessment of learning of the students. All the policies have to be in place according to the institution and whatever the institution thinks better for their students.